"Get ready for takeoff," Captain Sarah Malone barked into the intercom, her voice a crisp contrast to the mild chaos unfolding around her. Her crew, as usual, had taken their sweet time. Despite the ship's countdown clock ticking down relentlessly, the crew was still scrambling about. Sarah tapped her foot impatiently, her eyes darting over the bridge as she scanned the monitor. Every second of delay meant a fraction of a chance that something could go wrong. "Sarah, can you just give us one more minute?" Lieutenant Dane Hart, the ship's navigator, asked from the pilot's seat, not looking up from his console. His fingers danced over the holographic interface, trying to adjust the trajectory of their ship, the Exodus, to avoid an asteroid belt they had not anticipated on their course. "Not a minute." Sarah snapped back. "We are on a strict deadline. If we miss the alignment, we won't be able to make the jump. Do you understand? One more minute and we're dead in the water." The hum of the ship's engines, a steady pulse beneath her feet, seemed to echo her words. They were on the brink of something big, something monumental, the Great Filter. Humanity's 1 in a million chance to break free of the confines of their solar system and join the greater cosmic community. And it could all go wrong in a blink if they weren't careful. The Great Filter wasn't just a myth. It was real. It was the barrier, the cosmic chokehold, that kept species like humanity from reaching the stars. Every species that had tried to traverse the Milky Way, that had sought to conquer the unknown, had failed at some point. The more they tried to reach beyond their planet, the more they fell victim to some catastrophic failure, some great trap in the vast emptiness of space. The Exodus was humanity's answer to that puzzle, the final hope to prove that they could overcome the filter, if they could make the jump. The crew of the Exodus knew all too well what was at stake. Yet, they were here in the last stretch of their journey, and every one of them felt the gravity of the moment in a different way. Dane was a tech genius, a guy who could reprogram anything that had a microchip in it, but he was constantly distracted. He had been obsessively rewatching old Earth documentaries on interstellar travel as if it might unlock some missing piece of information, something no one else had figured out. His methods were unconventional, but they worked more often than not. Across the room, Lieutenant Kara Solis, the ship's communications officer, was calmly monitoring the signal strength, though she, too, was under strain. She had a steady hand, a steady mind. But the silence of space always unnerved her. The isolation, the unknowns. They all gnawed at her, and today was no different. "Everything's good with the comms, Captain," she said, her voice steady despite the tension building up around her. "Good," Sarah muttered, turning her attention back to the view outside the bridge's observation window. Stars stretched out beyond them like an endless sea. She had never seen them so close, so infinite. Their journey had taken them to the edge of known space, where the map stopped, where humanity's reach had never extended before. Yet, as serene as it appeared, the stars held their own dangers. As they moved further into this uncharted territory, the more they risked becoming just another casualty of the filter. "Captain," Kara's voice broke through her thoughts, "I've got something on long-range sensors. It's an anomaly, big, really big." Sarah turned, already alert. "What kind of anomaly?" Kara's fingers flew across her console as she narrowed down the data. "I'm not sure yet. Could be some kind of debris field, but it's too organized. Almost like someone arranged it. It's moving, too." "Moving?" Sarah repeated, leaning in. "We're talking something artificial?" "I'm not sure," Kara replied, her brow furrowing. "It's just too symmetrical to be a random collection of debris." "Where is it?" Sarah asked, her hand resting on the ship's control panel as she moved toward the navigational interface. "About 30,000 kilometers away. It's in our flight path." "Shit." Sarah cursed under her breath. They didn't have time for this. Not now. Not when they were so close. "Can you plot a new course?" Sarah demanded, trying to keep her voice calm despite the rising panic. They couldn't afford to be distracted now. They had one shot at this mission, and every delay pushed them further from the possibility of success. "Yeah, I can plot it, but..." Dane started, his voice trailing off as his eyes flicked between the map and the Engine's readouts. It's gonna cost us more fuel. And I'm not sure how long we'll need to avoid it. There's something off about this anomaly, Captain. Something I don't like. The hair on the back of Sarah's neck stood up. The feeling was mutual. How long until we're in range? She asked. 5 minutes, maybe less, Kara replied. We need to make a decision now. Sarah stood at the center of the bridge, considering her options. They could try to maneuver around it, but it would cost them precious resources. Or they could take the risk and head straight through it, hoping it was just a natural phenomenon, unlikely, but not impossible. Either way, this wasn't a situation they could afford to take lightly. I don't trust it, Sarah finally said, making her decision. Plot a new course, but be ready to divert if we see anything we don't like. I'm not losing this mission over some weird space junk. Dane's fingers moved quickly, rerouting their course. The engines hummed louder as they adjusted to the new trajectory. But Sarah couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the pit of her stomach. She glanced out the window again. The stars shimmered coldly back at her, their distance both comforting and terrifying. We'll get through this, she muttered under her breath, more to herself than to anyone else. She had to believe that. If they didn't press forward, the filter would claim them too. As the Exodus turned its course to avoid the anomaly, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Sarah's heart raced as they neared the danger zone. What would they find? Was this the filter's first move against them? Or was it just another bump in the road? One thing was certain, whatever it was, they were about to find out the hard way. Dane gave a nervous glance over his shoulder. Ah, Captain, there's something else coming through the anomaly. It's a ship. But not a human one. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. A ship? A non-human ship? Looks like it, Kara added, her eyes widening. And it's coming straight for us. For a long moment, there was silence on the bridge. The Exodus was heading directly toward a potential alien ship, and the implications of that were too monumental to grasp in such a short span of time. All Sarah could do was watch as the alien vessel took form against the backdrop of the stars. Its shape was unlike anything humanity had ever designed, sleek, organic-looking, like something alive, pulsing, shimmering with strange energy. Brace yourselves, Sarah said, her voice a calm, controlled command. This is about to get very interesting. The alien ship loomed before them, its massive, iridescent hull reflecting the starlight in eerie waves. The Exodus's proximity alarm blared, a sharp, shrill sound that rattled Sarah's nerves. The bridge fell into a heavy silence as every crew member held their breath. They were seconds away from a collision. It didn't help that the unknown ship was approaching at an alarming speed, faster than any craft Sarah had ever seen, even those in military simulations. They couldn't outrun it, not with their current velocity and trajectory. We've got to get out of the way. Sarah snapped, her fingers flying over the control panel as she tried to take evasive action. The ship swerved hard to the left, but the alien vessel mirrored the motion, staying dead in their path. Captain, it's not responding to our maneuvers, Dane said, his voice tense. It's like it's predicting our moves. How is that possible? Sarah demanded. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. The alien ship's movements were too precise, too coordinated. It didn't seem like any form of manual piloting, it felt almost like the ship was alive, like it was reading their every move and counteracting it before they even made it. Before anyone could respond, a strange, almost musical hum resonated through the Exodus. It vibrated through the walls, the floor, everything, and then suddenly, the ship's interface began flashing red. Energy spike, Kara reported. We've got a power surge from their ship, coming through the comms system. Shut it down. Sarah barked. But it was too late. In an instant, the flashing red lights were replaced by a series of strange symbols and unknown characters flooding their screens, some twisting in complex geometric patterns, others flashing rapidly like a sequence of indecipherable code. The symbols seemed to pulse with some kind of energy. It wasn't just their ship's systems that were affected, Sarah could feel it in her bones, as though the very fabric of space around them had shifted. Their ship is somehow interfacing with our systems. Dane shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. It's like it's reading our data streams and using them to manipulate the ship's functions. We're losing control. We need to break the connection, now. Sarah yelled, but as soon as she spoke, she felt the ship shudder under her feet. The lights flickered, and a dull hum reverberated through the hull. It was as if the Exodus itself were groaning in protest. Damn it, Sarah muttered under her breath. This isn't just a random encounter. This is deliberate. They're trying to communicate. But how are they doing it? She turned to Kara, her mind already formulating a plan. Can we hack their communications? Kara's face was pale, her fingers racing over her console. I'm not sure we can, she replied, frustration evident in her voice. We're dealing with something way beyond anything I've ever seen. The data coming through it's like nothing I've ever encountered. It's not even based on any language, human or otherwise. Then we'll have to think outside the box, Sarah said, her mind already racing. She turned to Dane. I need you to rewire our systems to interrupt their signal. You've worked on alien tech before. Think of it like a puzzle. Can you do it? Dane stared at her for a moment, his brow furrowed as he processed her words. He chewed on his lip, clearly weighing the odds. Finally, he nodded. I can try. But if I make a mistake, we might lose all control of the ship. I'm talking total systems failure, life support, navigation, weapons, everything. We're already on the verge of disaster, Sarah replied, her voice grim. We have to take that risk. Dane jumped into action, his fingers flying over the console. He didn't need to be told twice. Sarah watched as he worked, his face lighting up with fleeting moments of understanding as he pieced together the strange patterns flashing before him. Meanwhile, Sarah paced in tight circles, her eyes flicking between the alien ship, her crew, and the rapidly diminishing time on the countdown to the Great Jump. A sudden crash rattled the ship. A violent tremor shook the entire hull as the alien ship released an intense burst of energy that slammed into the Exodus's shields. The force sent the crew stumbling, but they quickly regained their footing. The hum in the walls grew louder and more intense. The ship was under assault, but the attack wasn't purely physical, it was an attack on their very ability to function. They're using some kind of subspace frequency. Kara shouted. It's scrambling our internal systems. Our shields are weakening. Get me that bypass, Dane. Sarah snapped. I'm trying. Dane's voice came back, strained. I need just a few more seconds to realign the interface. The hum grew louder. The flashing symbols on the screen started to shift in a coordinated, menacing rhythm. They were closing in on their position, the alien ship pulling the Exodus toward it like a predator stalking its prey. Captain! Kara shouted. They're targeting our reactor. It's drawing energy directly from our systems. How is that possible? Sarah demanded, her mind racing. That's impossible. We have safeguards in place for every possible breach. It's not a breach, Dane called out. It's a siphon. They're using some sort of energy siphon, tapping into our power like it's a conduit. They know exactly how our reactors work. Shut it down, shut it down. Sarah ordered, though she knew it was futile. There was no way they could block a siphon without completely disabling their entire energy grid, leaving them powerless in deep space. The alien ship was almost upon them now. It dwarfed the Exodus in size, an overwhelming presence in the cold emptiness of space. It was like a living thing, pulsating with energy, its surface shifting and flowing like liquid metal. This is it, Sarah thought, her heart pounding in her chest. We're out of options. Suddenly, a new sound sliced through the tension, an eerie, electronic tone that was neither a threat nor a warning, but something else entirely. It was rhythmic, hypnotic, almost musical, but unlike anything Sarah had ever heard. It reverberated through her bones, deep and resonating. Kara's eyes widened. Wait, wait. It's not attacking us. It's trying to communicate. How do you know that? Sarah asked, her voice incredulous. Listen, Kara said, turning to Sarah with a mix of confusion and realization. It's using a frequency, something akin to language, but it's not human. It's like a song. A message encoded in the sound. I don't care about their song. Sarah snapped, but the urgency in Kara's voice stopped her. We need to respond. This might be our only chance. Dane, still working feverishly, hesitated, his fingers hovering over the controls. I think I can do it. If I interface with their frequency directly, I might be able to decode it. But I'm not sure what will happen afterward. Sarah took a deep breath. This was their chance, but it was a gamble. Still, they had no choice. Do it, she said firmly. And as Dane initiated the connection, the ship's hum shifted once again, this time in harmony with the alien vessel's song. The stars outside seemed to flicker as though the universe itself was holding its breath. What now? Sarah asked, her voice steady but her heart racing. Now, Dane said slowly, his fingers flying over the controls, we wait. But as he spoke, the ship's internal systems flickered again, and this time, the hum wasn't just in the walls, it was in their heads. Every one of them felt it, a pulse that resonated deeper than sound, almost like a presence, a consciousness. And then, just as suddenly as it had all started, the hum stopped. Dead silence filled the ship. No alarms, no sirens. Just quiet. The alien ship hovered in front of them, motionless, waiting. What they had done in those final moments, what it meant, none of them knew yet. But one thing was for certain, the next few moments would change everything. Something's happening, Kara whispered, eyes glued to her console. Something's coming through. And in that moment, they all understood, they were no longer just passengers on a mission, they were part of a greater, unimaginable story. The air in the bridge grew thick with tension. The quiet that had followed the alien ship's strange signal was suffocating, each passing second heavier than the last. Sarah Malone stood at the front of the bridge, hands clenched on the railing, her mind spinning. The hum had ceased, but the eerie stillness that followed was even more unnerving. The alien ship loomed just outside their window, its massive form now a mere few kilometers away. What's happening, Dane? Sarah asked, her voice sharp but steady. Is the link still open? Dane Hart, hunched over his console, eyes glued to the screen, didn't immediately answer. His fingers trembled slightly as he scanned through layers of data. His face was pale, his lips pressed tight in concentration. I don't know, he said, his voice shaking for the first time in hours. I'm getting a lot of data, but it's not what I expected. It's like the ship is transmitting in layers. It's not just sending a signal, it's a construct. A construct? Sarah repeated, frowning. It's like a web of information, Dane said, his brow furrowing as he struggled to comprehend what was happening. It's not just code, it's patterns, suggestions, almost like it's teaching us how to communicate. But I can't make sense of the rest of it. It's alien, Captain. Completely alien. Teach us how to communicate. Kara Solis, the communications officer, asked from her station. But we're not speaking their language. How could they? I know, Dane interrupted. But I think we're seeing something we don't fully understand yet. It's like they're sharing a part of their technology with us. Sarah's mind raced. She had known from the beginning that humanity's first contact with an alien civilization would be unpredictable, but this was something else entirely. They had gone from avoiding an asteroid belt to now engaging with a sentient, technologically advanced species, one that wasn't attacking, but communicating, and not with words, but with something far more advanced. The alien ship was still silent, but its presence had shifted. The energy in the space around them felt alive, as if it were waiting for something, anticipating their next move. Is the transmission still active? Sarah asked, her voice low. Dane nodded, his fingers flying over the console once more. Yes. But this is like nothing I've ever seen before. It's not a message, it's a map. It's like, they're giving us directions, a guide to understanding their world, their technology, maybe even their purpose. Kara's eyes widened. You mean, they're offering us knowledge? Like a gift? Dane looked up at her. That's what it feels like. For a moment, the crew was silent, processing the gravity of what Dane had just said. A part of Sarah wanted to reject the idea, to stay focused on the mission. But the evidence was in front of her, pulsing on the screen. The alien ship, seemingly harmless, wasn't a threat, it was offering something. Sarah took a step forward, her voice calm but firm. What happens if we accept it? If we engage with this map? Dane hesitated, then spoke carefully. I can't predict what will happen. It could be dangerous, whatever this is, it's beyond our understanding. But at the same time, we can't just ignore it, can we? The silence stretched on for a long moment, broken only by the soft, rhythmic hum of the Exodus engines. The crew exchanged looks, each of them aware of the enormous risk they were about to take. This was no longer just a mission to prove humanity's place in the stars. This was a chance to learn something that could completely change their understanding of the universe, something that could open up possibilities they hadn't even dared to dream. Finally, Sarah made her decision. Do it, Dane. Open the transmission. Let's see where it takes us. Dane nodded quickly, his hands flying over the console as he initiated the connection. A new set of symbols appeared on the screen, far more complex than anything they had seen before. The data streamed faster now, moving with such speed that it almost seemed like it was alive, pulsing, undulating like a living organism. The moment Dane completed the connection, the ship's hull trembled, and a series of sharp, high-pitched tones rang through the air. It was like the sound of wind, only sharper, more intense, as though the ship itself was vibrating in response to the incoming data. Suddenly, the lights on the bridge dimmed, casting long shadows against the walls. A cold sensation swept over Sarah as the temperature seemed to drop. She looked up, and in that instant, the window to space outside seemed to distort. The stars appeared to bend, twisting into strange shapes, as if the very fabric of space had warped. Something's happening, Kara whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. The stars, look at the stars. Sarah's heart raced. It was like the universe itself was shifting before her eyes. A new pattern began to emerge, a geometric map unfolding across the viewport. The stars realigned, twisting into configurations that defied everything they knew about physics. Some stars blinked out of existence, while others blinked into view in the wrong positions. Dane swore under his breath, his fingers working feverishly to stabilize the data. I'm trying to hold on to the connection, but this is too much. It's overwhelming. Just then, the transmission shifted again, and Sarah felt an overwhelming force press against her chest. The sensation was not physical, but mental, a pressure in her mind that made her head spin. She staggered back, gasping for air, but the pressure remained. Captain! Kara shouted, her voice rising in panic. What's happening to you? It's like, Sarah gasped, struggling to find the words. It's like something is inside my mind. The pressure intensified. Sarah's vision blurred as the map in front of her grew more complex, more intricate. The symbols, now flowing through her consciousness, weren't just images anymore, they were concepts, ideas. An entire galaxy's worth of knowledge was flooding into her head at once, and she couldn't process it fast enough. Shut it down! Dane cried out. We're losing control of the systems. We can't handle this much data. But it was too late. The pressure in Sarah's head built to a breaking point, and with a final, sharp burst of energy, the data stream exploded outward, like a wave crashing over them. She screamed as everything around her went white. When Sarah regained consciousness, she was lying flat on the floor of the bridge, her breath shallow and rapid. The pressure had vanished, but something had changed. She pushed herself up, her head spinning as the crew members stared at her with wide, fearful eyes. Captain, are you okay? Kara asked softly, her voice tentative. Sarah's words faltered as she tried to steady herself. She took a deep breath, pushing the overwhelming sensation from her mind. The stars outside the window were still in their place, but something was different. The air felt charged with energy, as though it had been infused with a new, unexplainable force. Dane's voice cracked. "Captain. I don't know what just happened, but the ship's systems are now, they're optimized. Everything is functioning at full capacity. I think we just... optimized?" Sarah repeated, the words not fully registering. "What do you mean?" "It's like," Dane said, his voice filled with awe, "the ship, it's been upgraded. The alien technology, it's merging with ours. It's like they've given us their knowledge, and it's integrated into our systems. Everything is..." He stopped, his voice faltering. "Captain, we've just been given the key to navigate beyond the stars." The weight of his words hit her all at once. The alien ship, that living enigma in front of them, had changed them. They weren't just survivors anymore. They had become something else, a bridge between humanity and a far greater cosmos. But as Sarah's gaze fell back to the stars outside, she realized with a chill creeping down her spine that the real challenge was just beginning. They had crossed the boundary of the known universe, but what waited on the other side, in the deep void, was far beyond anything they could have anticipated. The stakes had never been higher. "We need to be ready for whatever comes next," Sarah said, her voice steady, despite the fear swirling in her chest. "This is just the beginning." And as the Exodus powered up, propelled by the new knowledge they had gained, the crew knew that the galaxy was no longer the same place it had been just hours ago. They were no longer alone. And neither were the stars. The feeling of new power coursed through the Exodus as it shot through the stars, its engines humming with an unfamiliar but undeniably potent force. Sarah Malone stood at the helm, her hands steady on the controls, though her mind was a whirlwind of questions. The alien ship had vanished into the blackness of space moments after their systems had been altered. Whether that was by design or simply because they had outlived their usefulness to the visitors, no one could say. But the truth was undeniable, the Exodus was now a vessel unlike anything humanity had ever created. But with that power came uncertainty. The data from the alien ship still pulsed through their systems. Strange new algorithms ran in the background, constantly reformatting their interface in ways the crew couldn't fully comprehend. Some of the crew members had likened it to magic, as the technology had transcended anything even remotely familiar to them. And as they moved further from the alien ship's location, Sarah's thoughts kept returning to the same question. What did it all mean? What was this gift they'd been given, and what would the cost be? "Captain, we're heading into unknown space," Kara reported from her station. "According to our new navigation systems, we're moving toward a star system that's, well, it's not charted at all. It doesn't even appear on the Federation maps." Sarah's pulse quickened. "How far are we from the system?" "About 3 light years," Kara said. "If we keep this trajectory, we should arrive in less than an hour." "And we don't know what's there," Dane added from behind her, his voice tense. "I've been combing through the alien data. There's nothing in their system that can give us any context about this star system. We don't even know what kind of planets might be there. It could be dangerous." Sarah looked over her shoulder, catching his gaze. She didn't need to hear any more of his concerns to know that he was right. Every part of her wanted to turn the ship around, return to Federation space, and chalk this whole ordeal up to a strange and incomprehensible fluke. But something held her back. That same pulse of energy from the alien ship, the feeling of something bigger, wouldn't let her. "We can't turn back," she said firmly. "We have to see this through." Dane didn't argue, but she could see the wariness in his eyes. He knew what was at stake. The Exodus powered through the cold void, faster than it had ever moved before. The stars outside their window blurred into streaks of light, an endless tunnel of space as they plunged deeper into unknown territory. With each passing moment, Sarah felt her grip on reality slip just a little bit more. The alien technology that had merged with their systems was not just an upgrade, it was changing them. Every creak of the ship, every hum of the engines, felt different. More alive. More aware. There was a presence in the ship, something beyond the crew. It was as if the Exodus itself had become a part of the larger intelligence that had shared its knowledge with them. "We're approaching the system," Kara said, her voice cutting through Sarah's thoughts. Sarah nodded, pushing her concerns aside. "All right. Let's see what we're dealing with." As they neared the system, the first thing that struck Sarah was how normal it looked. It was a quiet, unassuming region of space. A small star, surrounded by a few planets. Nothing special, nothing to indicate that it had any significance. But as the Exodus moved closer to the system's outermost planet, Sarah felt that presence again. It was more distinct this time, like a ripple in the fabric of space, a subtle vibration that seemed to align with her heartbeat. "I'm detecting anomalies on the third planet," Kara said, her voice laced with uncertainty. "It's a habitable planet, but there's something wrong. The atmosphere is fluctuating. And, Captain, the gravity on the surface is higher than it should be." "How high?" "About 1.5 Gs, Kara said, glancing at her console. "It's within the limits for human survival, but it's strange. A planet with this kind of gravity, this kind of atmosphere, it should be dead." Sarah's stomach tightened. This was no ordinary planet. But what had made it so? And why was it part of the map that had been transmitted to them? "Land the ship," Sarah ordered. "Let's go down and see what's going on." The Exodus descended into the planet's atmosphere with the grace of a bird of prey. Their landing was smooth, but Sarah felt a shiver of unease as the ship's gravity restabilized. The planet's atmosphere was dense, with a slight bluish tint that cast everything in an unnatural glow. As they disembarked into the landing bay, Sarah could feel the subtle pressure of the planet's gravity pulling at her. The ground outside was rocky, jagged, but there were signs of life, strange, alien plants, their shapes twisted and unnatural. Some of them seemed to pulse with bioluminescence, their colors shifting with the breeze. But there was something else. A hum. It was faint, but it was there. Coming from the horizon, deep in the distance, like the low murmur of a vast, sleeping entity. "Something is out there," Kara said quietly, eyes fixed on the distant land. "Do you hear that?" "It's not just the wind," Sarah said, her voice calm but tense. "It's something else. We need to investigate." The team ventured into the wild, alien landscape. As they walked, the hum grew louder. It wasn't natural. It was mechanical, almost mechanical in nature, like a machine buried beneath the planet's surface. The plants, alien though they were, seemed to bend toward the sound, as though they too were drawn to it. After about an hour of walking through the strange terrain, they reached the source of the hum, an enormous structure, half buried in the earth. At first glance, it looked like a relic from an ancient civilization, worn, weathered, and crumbled by time. But as Sarah approached, she realized it wasn't just any structure. It was a gateway. A massive, intricate door, carved with symbols that looked almost familiar. It was a portal, a threshold into something far beyond their understanding. Dane stepped forward, his eyes wide with awe. This is it, isn't it? This is what they were leading us to." Sarah nodded. The realization hit her like a thunderclap. The alien ship, the Exodus new systems, everything they had been given, it wasn't just technology. It was a guide, a map that led them here, to this doorway. This was no ordinary planet, no random discovery. This was the next step. "What do you think is on the other side?" Kara asked, her voice low and cautious. "I don't know," Sarah said, looking at her crew, her gaze hardening with determination. "But I do know this, the galaxy just changed. And we're the ones who get to see it first." There was no turning back now. The unknown stretched before them, and it was more than just curiosity that pushed them forward. It was something deeper, something that felt almost destined. Humanity had never been meant to stay confined to the stars it knew. It was time to step through that threshold and see what awaited them. "Open it," Sarah said, her voice a whisper of finality. and as the ancient door creaked open, the crew of the Exodus stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever lay beyond. They had crossed a line, one that no one could ever uncross, and now, they were not just travelers in space. They were the first ambassadors of a new chapter of human history. The great filter had been passed, and humanity's future was waiting.